Welcome to the Curator's Choice. My name is Ann Shafer, and I am your host. This is a podcast in which I look back on works on paper that I acquired for the Baltimore Museum of Art several years ago. Usually a print, sometimes a photograph, maybe a drawing, and sometimes there'll be sets of things, maybe a portfolio. We'll see. Sometimes also it will be objects that I failed to get into the collection for one reason or another. And sometimes they'll just be things that I had on my sort of, back burner list that got away. Today, I want to tell you about a set of prints that we purchased from the Baltimore Contemporary Print Fair in 2012. It's a set of 6 progressive state proofs and the final iteration of an engraving by James Siena, dated 2004, called No Man's Land. Before we do that, though, let us do the positionality thing and then take a micro break. I identify as a cishet white woman, and I use the pronouns she, her. I am recording this in Baltimore, Maryland, the land of the Piscataway Conoy people. Okay, let's take a micro break and then we'll get started. Okay, so let me start with the print fair first. The print fair was something that the print department and its friends group, the Print Drawing and Photograph Society, put on together starting in 1990. And it ran annually from 1990 to 2000. And then after that, it became biennial. I took the print fair on in 2012. I also did it in 2015, and then its final iteration in 2017. The fair is no longer a priority for the museum, so they don't appear to be doing it anymore, which is sad because honestly, it was a great event. I think it really was the most fun thing I did, besides, acquiring works of art, because that was fun too. But it was wonderful to get to know all of the vendors, all of the various print publishers and galleries and dealers that came to Baltimore. It was great to show the audience that came to the fair, introduce them to the vendors, but also to show them things that I had my eye on and things that I thought were really special. And I sure do miss it. 2017 feels like a long time ago now. But I am more than pleased to share that I am bringing to Baltimore a print fair unrelated to the museum. The museum is not involved in any way. I am partnering with Brian Miller and Julie Funderburk to put on the affair April 29th to May 1st. So mark your calendars. I expect to see you there. And, it's really fun doing it again. And I am, yes, indeed, over the moon. So for details, you can go over to baltimoreprintfair.com and check out the venue and the hours, and tickets aren't on sale yet, but they will be, and that's where you'll find them. Okay, so back to the BMA. The BMA's fair, usually we had about 20 vendors in the exhibition galleries, and you could fit about 20 vendors in there. They each had about 24 running feet of wall to hang all of these framed prints. And we used to always talk about how you could never go to a print exhibition in any museum and see this many prints. Like it was a smorgasbord of contemporary prints. It was really tremendous. At those fairs, it was normal practice for the curators to identify at least one work of art for purchase out of the fair from one of the vendors. The proceeds, as we put together the fair, the extra money that we made that we didn't spend putting the fair on, went into an acquisition fund for specifically purchases of contemporary prints, although occasionally we would use it for something else. And there were occasionally fairs where nothing was acquired. But in 2012, this set of prints by James Siena were all framed up and on the wall in the booth of Harlan and Weaver, Felix Harlan and Carol Weaver. All 6 of the progressive proofs and the final iteration. They just looked so great. It was a no-brainer. We all 4 of us thought they were the bee's knees and were totally in on the acquisition. So you would see the curatorial team sort of running around at the end of the fair on Sunday afternoon. We'd be sitting there making notes about what we felt like we could reasonably purchase. So it was Jay Fisher and Rena Hoisington, me, and I think in 2012, it would have been Ben Levy. So we were all kibitzing about what to buy. And the Siena set was just, it was so easy. Okay. The thing that I need to tell you is what the state proofs are. This might be confusing. So here's the technical bit. State proofs are impressions from a plate in progress as it progresses through the construction of the image. When an artist begins to make marks at a certain point, they'll stop and they will ink it up and put it through the press to see what the marks what they look like, what the progress is on the plate. It's random. It's whenever the artist feels compelled to see how the image is coming along. There's no set, you must stop here, X, Y, Z. There's no rule. When they reach another good breaking point, they'll print another impression to check progress. And there are prints out there that have, 20, 25 state proofs that show you the progress of the etch on the plate or the engraving or woodcut or whatever the process is. And there's no rule about, again, how many should be printed. But the master printers usually keep those, and sometimes, if we're lucky, they will bundle them together and sell them as a group with the final impression. And this is what Felix and Carol did that time. You can imagine that print curators love this kind of object because of its ability to show very clearly how the image was constructed. No Man's Land, Siena's print, was super helpful in the print room because we were always teaching visitors and classes about the ins and outs of printmaking. And, there's some technical humps to get over, but what better way to talk about the steps in printmaking than to show them physically? Like you could just see state 1, state 2, state 3, state 4, all the way up to 7, which was the final. So the artist, James Siena, works mainly in abstraction, often with a set of parameters that are either to be followed or consciously ignored or broken. Often the images fill the entire canvas or the piece of paper. They push all the way out to the edges, and our eye is drawn with that all the way to the edges to find this sort of tension place where the marks end and the edge of the paper or the canvas ends. It's almost like the image is kind of muscling its way out and outside of the image area. There's an interesting tension that goes there. So when you look at Siena's work, always check the edges. In No Man's Land, there are 5 bursts of radiating lines that push against each other and also explode inwardly and also push to the edges of the image. Although completely abstract, you can see that the title helps us understand that it's an abstraction representing an aerial view of a World War I battlefield. The blast sites, as you would fly over top, these are 5 of them. This allusion to reality is at odds with the elegance, to my mind, and precision of the engraved lines. Their crisp coolness, their strength, and their confident straightness. Engraving is really tough. There are not very many artists today who work in that vein. You could probably count them on a hand and a half. Creating an image in a copper plate it takes a lot of patience. And to my mind, it's always worth the effort. But it was great to see James try these, honestly, because he doesn't do that many engravings. So I always love it when artists give something a try. I love going back all the way to the first state when each burst consists of between 8 and 11 lines, and then tracing all the way through the 6 proofs up to the 7th one. In the first one, each of the bursts have, in order, 8 lines, 9, 10, 10, and 11. There's 5 clumps. The central one has 8. And it follows this sort of Fibonacci sequence, the golden mean, as it rotates out. And in that first state, I see spiders more than anything else. You can see what you want to see. That's what I see. In the second state, the lines are doubled, and starts turning in from a single spider to spider's webs. And then as it progresses and the density of the lines, particularly at the center of the blasts, the lines they don't cross, they don't touch each other. I mean, that's sort of, I think, his rule, but they can't touch each other. And they're not all the same length. So it's not just like a burst function you could throw onto your working document in Illustrator. Like you have, it's quite hand done. The density, of course, when you have extra lines that are short and stuck in these little spaces, it kind of makes this, it's a little moire inducing. It's especially if you look at it on a screen. They're so irregular, but they're so regular at the same time. When you finally get to the last state, the bomb blasts that are indicated by the title of the work come into view. Like you can finally, your eyes go, oh yeah, not spider webs anymore. Now, oh yes, I see an aerial view of a bomb blasted battlefield. They're more complicated than you might think if you go in and zoom in and take a really good look at what the lines are doing and how they're not crossing each other. And I just think their stark beauty and the contrast between the horror of a battlefield and the beauty of the line work. There's always that interesting tension under the term horrible beauty for me, that you can derive pleasure in viewing a thing that is representing a thing that is so horrible. It's a weird tension point for me. And in this case, with the 6 proofs, as you go from state 1 up to the final state 7, that the journey only adds to the whole effect of the last one. Like for me, the journey is the reward, that you've been able to follow James's hand as he's scribed in all of these lines from 1 to 7. And for me, that the image is so much richer because of it. I feel like it's just, I don't know, I think it enhances the whole thing. And you will have heard me say this before, probably. We used to say this in the print room all the time, that prints reward scrutiny. And these certainly follow under that, under that heading. So take a look at them. Let me know what you think. Yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you for joining me for the Curator's Choice episode about James Siena and his Prints No Man's Land from 2004. The podcast is produced by me, Ann Shafer. I do all the editing and obviously the writing and obviously the talking. I'd like to thank James Siena for making the work, and also Harlan and Weaver for being the master printers who guided him so handily. And also always a thank you to Michael Diamond for the use of his original music. As I said before, you can go find the images for these prints at the curatorschoicepodcast.com, and we'll see you next time.